over the last several years, we've seen an evolution of the modern gun show in America. And when I use the word evolution, it's really more of a de-evolution, like it's going backwards, it's getting worse. And one might argue that, we went through an ammo shortage and a gun shortage and it kind of threw it out of whack. And, but the problems that gun shows have really even stem back before that. And as we enter into 2025, I want to take a moment and look at 5 things you will find at gun shows and 5 things you won't, because I think it's very important we be clear on what our expectations are of gun shows and what's real. Now, I'd like to also add that clearly there's going to be some variables. There's going to be gun shows that are not like this. I'm just giving as a whole, on average, these are 5 things you will find and 5 things you won't find at most gun shows in America. Well, let's start with what you will find in 2025 at gun shows in America. The first thing, you're going to find the ATF there. This is a new thing because of White House regulations and new bipartisan bills that were passed when it comes to gun control. The federal government has eliminated people's ability to sell their guns as collectors. And because of that, the ATF is going to monitor that sort of thing. So in 2025, according to the ATF, they will be present at gun shows in America. So the first thing you're going to find the ATF there. Number 2, you're going to find some scams. And here's what I want to kind of warn you about here is when it comes to gun shows, remember they're traveling shows. A lot of people kind of pop in, pop out. So a few things I want to warn you about when it comes to scams is war relics is the first one. When somebody says, well, this particular knife or this particular holster or this magazine or whatever the case may be came from World War II or Vietnam War, make sure you do your homework. There's serial numbers that'll verify that sort of thing. Just take some time and do a little homework. People put a lot of credibility into the things they bring to the gun show, and they act like they're something that they're really not. And it's important that you do your homework if you're going to be spending money on war relics, that sort of thing. And also keep in mind, because it's a traveling show, there's a reason oftentimes why certain dealers are trying to sell used guns, because they may be it may be a problem gun, it may be a lemon. Now, I'm going to say, regardless of whether you buy a new or used gun and where you buy it, you always take that risk. But be cautious of dealers that won't let you at least field strip the gun. Definitely feel obliged to field strip. If they won't let you field strip the gun, just don't get it. It's important that you take it apart, because you just, kind of like my mom always said, life is like a box of guns. You never know what you're going to get. So you definitely want to take that thing apart. All right. The third thing you're going to find at gun shows is a lot of non-gun related items. This is going to be like t-shirts. This will be like windows for your home, baked goods, toys for your kids. When it comes to gun shows, the people that host the gun shows, they make their money off of selling booths, selling table spaces. And when there's not a lot of gun dealers to purchase those table spaces, they're going to start selling it to other people who have non-gun related items. And there's a lot more of those lately than there have been in the past. All right, here's the fourth thing you're going to find at gun shows in America in 2025 is lots of new guns. Lots of new guns. Now, this is kind of a problem because these are the types of guns you can find at like Bass Pro or your average gun shop. These are things like Glocks and Smith & Wessons and Sig Sauers, things that you can find everywhere. Because keep in mind, these are gun dealers that are setting up booths. Because once you got rid of, and we'll talk about what you won't find, is once you got rid of the collectors, you really eliminated most of the older guns. And now you're stuck with just a ton of new guns. All right, and the fifth thing you're going to find is you're going to find an occasional accidental misfire. We've all heard it. If you've been to enough gun shows, you've heard guns go off in the middle of those auditoriums. It's a fairly normal occurrence. And I share this with you because I tell you to be careful. If you're, again, field stripping a gun, always do a check of that gun, because I could promise you that when you hear a gunshot go off at a gun show, it's usually because somebody did not safety check that gun and they started messing around with it. So you're going to hear it, and you probably have. By the way, if you have, put in the comments below. So there's the 5 things you will find at gun shows in 2025. Let's talk about 5 things you won't find at gun shows in 2025. Number 1, low-priced guns. Now, I want you to keep in mind that when it comes to gun shows, a lot of gun dealers, they have their overhead from their normal store, but then they have their overhead for the travel. They have the overhead for the table, and they have all the other overhead that they had just with their regular store on top of that. So you're not going to find low-priced guns anymore. That's it. There used to be a day where you could go to gun shows to find a good deal. That day, I believe, is gone. Now, I'm not saying you won't find a good deal, but I wouldn't plan on it. I definitely wouldn't bank on it. Chances are, almost everything you look at, you're going to think to yourself, this seems to be a little bit overpriced to me, and that's because it is overpriced. All right, the second thing you won't find at gun shows is low-priced ammo. Ammo is becoming far and between at gun shows, and typically the types of ammo you're going to find at gun shows is you're going to find some booths, so that's all they sell. They sell a ton of ammo. And some of it is priced okay, but generally speaking, they're taking advantage of people's needs and their desire to get bulk and that sort of thing. And if you really look at the price you're paying per bullet, you're not really getting any low-priced ammo. You're paying about the same as what you'd pay in like Cabela's or Bass Pro, maybe even more. And they're trying to kind of show you, well, if you buy a lot, then we'll, lower the price a little. But in the end, just keep track of how much you're paying per bullet. And I think you're going to be surprised. All right, the third thing you won't find at gun shows in America in 2025 is old and antique guns. Now, this is what I was getting at. When they passed these new laws that banned collectors selling their guns at gun shows, we got rid of all the collector guns. Now, not to say there's not old guns, but keep in mind that every single booth that will exist at a gun show in America in 2025 will be an FFL. So what they're getting is a large stock of new guns. It's not going to be this wealth of old antique guns. It used to be, you go to the gun show, and I'd argue greater than 50% of the guns there were antique guns. And I just think that those old antique guns, you'll find a few of them, but nothing like you would have found 5-10 years ago. It was the greatest thing about going to a gun show, is all the old antique guns. All right, here's the fourth thing you won't find at gun shows. Hard to find guns. Now, this was the other great thing about going to gun shows 5 to 10 years ago, is you'd search and search and you'd stumble across that gun that you have been searching for, but it's so hard to find because it's rare, kind of that unicorn gun, so to say. And because of that, of the getting rid of the collectors, you kind of eliminate a lot of those unicorn guns as well. Those really hard to find guns are even harder to find in 2025 at gun shows. All right, and finally, here's the fifth thing that you won't find at gun shows is a wealth of used guns. These would be newer guns that are used, and those are oftentimes the best deals you can get. And there's just not a lot of those for the same reason as the old and antique ones. These are gun dealers. These are people that are in the business of buying brand new guns and selling them. And occasionally they'll get in older guns and trades, but it's very far and in between. There's not a lot of them at gun shows. So there you go. There's the 5 things you will and the 5 things you won't find at gun shows in America in 2025. I'm sure there's a bunch of them I forgot to mention. Put in the comments below. I do want to take a moment and say most people watch the channel. Hey, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. Greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. It's free. That link is below. But the most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.